Welcome to Jin Shin Institute. And I'm very happy to have today with us Carylse Smith from London. Welcome.
Thank you. It's wonderful to be with you today.
Yes, I'm very happy to have you because you've taught for a long time. You've taught Jin Shin Jyutsu for a long time, and you've taught for JSJ Inc. as well. And when was the last time that you were here in the United States?
Well, I come over frequently to visit with family. So I was actually in Arizona in January.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, but when was the last time that you taught a class here?
The last time I taught a class would have probably been perhaps 3 or 4 years ago.
Yeah. Nice. Okay. Yeah. So I'm really happy that people can getting to know you. And I hope also that people will call in with some questions, a question and answer, because you're going to be teaching here the last week of April, a pulse listening class, which is very special because so many people are interested in learning the pulses. And what I think is that you will take it from all levels. Can you explain just a little bit what you're going to be doing?
Well, my hope is that as we go through the weekend, that people will be able to tap into just how much they really do know, how much they really do hear already. And that they will come away gaining confidence in their own ability to listen. Listening is something that we don't really pay a lot of attention to. It just is there. And somehow when we start putting words around our listening like pulses, everybody kind of tightens up a little bit and draws back and says, oh, I'm not sure I know to do that. But of course, we've been listening all our lives.
So in that way, you're not just talking about listening to the pulses in the wrist. You're also talking about connecting to something bigger.
Into the whole realm of listening. I love that in Jin Shin Jyutsu, we talk about listening with our hands. Isn't that an interesting concept? Isn't that an interesting way of understanding the information that's coming to us through our hands as a form of listening?
So do you specifically talk about the fingertips as well, like when we're listening to the pulse in the wrist? Or are you talking also then about when we place our hands?
Both.
Or even just a pulsation around us?
Most of the class will be focused on the information that we'll be receiving when we're listening at the wrists and when we place our hands on the body.
Okay.
It is all of that listening that we get through our hands.
That's wonderful. And you wanted this class to be for a little bit more advanced students, for students who have studied a bit so that they understand the basic concepts?
It's really helpful for people who have been introduced to the basic concepts of Jin Shin Jyutsu, of the depths and the safety energy locks, the organ function energy, and how they relate to each other. Because then we have something that we can begin to understand what it is that we're hearing. So there is a focus on allowing ourselves to hear, and also then what do we do with that?
Yeah, I love that because I so often get the question, so if you hear this, do you go to the organ functions or the safety energy locations? And so that is what we will be exploring.
Absolutely.
And we will get a lot of practice as well?
Definitely.
Okay.
Both in terms of listening to pulses, practicing that, as well as giving and receiving sessions during the weekend.
It sounds wonderful. I'm going to be there. So the class is filling up. We do have a few more spots available. And also, if people would like to get a group together, we offer rooms here at Jin Shin Institute, which will be nice. It's a beautiful place and we're close to the park, and we will all be here. And so that package is, anyway, they can, I guess you can, if people are interested, they can go to the website and check it out, or email me or send me a Facebook message about that. But what we had in mind is that if you know, like a few friends to come to Manhattan for the weekend, because there's going to be some time in the evenings to look around, and we're close to the Met where they have an evening program. And so that could be really cool to be a part of it. And so, yes, it would be wonderful if a few people from out of town will pull that together.
That would be wonderful.
Yes, and then the last 2 hours of the on Sunday will be a self-help class that is offered by webinar as well. And so anybody can tune in to meet Carylse and get her perspective, because I teach a lot of self-help classes myself, and I really enjoy listening to other people, to other teachers, to get different perspective. So people can tune in from all over the world. So that's really cool. And so that's about your visit to New York. So I have some questions. How did you get into Jin Shin?
Well, there's the short answer and the long answer. The short answer is I was introduced to Jin Shin Jitsu by my brother. My brother, Aaron Smith, was living in a house in Colorado, and one of his housemates said, well, I've heard of this thing. You might be interested in going along. Mm-hmm. And he went along to a self-help class that then started him on his journey in Jin Shin Jitsu. And almost immediately he was wanting to practice on someone. Oh. And that someone was luckily me.
Oh, that's nice. Yeah. So you got your first introduction by a session from your brother.
Yes.
That's okay. That's very, and then how did you proceed? Did you go to take a class, or who was your first teacher?
Well, it was very interesting, the kind of journey that I went through. The session that he gave me was so transformative and completely changed my life, my perception of myself, my understanding of myself in that one session. And then it was some months later before, of course, we got together again at another, family gathering, and I had my second session. And as soon as it was over and I surfaced, I went to him and I said, I don't know the name of this thing that you do, but it's just too long between the times that we see each other. Yeah. Is there any way I can do this for myself?
Really? Wow.
And he went charging up to his room and came back down with Mary Burmeister's Self-Help Book 1. And he again handed it to me and said, everything you need to know is in here.
Mm-hmm. So that's all he worked with, really, with the basic self-help. And that's how you said, this is what I would like to do.
Yes.
Just from that. So that's very inspirational also for all the people who are listening and working on their family and friends, that how powerful it really is, because it really took you on a lifelong journey.
Absolutely. It really made such a difference. And I've been so grateful ever since. So for a number of years, it was receiving sessions and then using the self-help daily. That was in 1980 that he introduced me to it. And then around the mid-90s, I started sharing my love of the self-help with other people and presenting self-help classes. And then for the last 9 years, I've been expanding that, and I present my understanding of the philosophy and the energetic story that underlies the art.
Yes, so that's very much what drew you to it, to make it your journey. Because I'm interested to see why people go on this journey. Some people, they just come for quick fixes and they want to get rid of symptoms. And then for other people like myself and you, who make it their lifelong journey.
And I think one of the things that we do not understand, we just know that it sometimes happens, are these little miracles. And for me, I did not know at the time, but I had lived all my life as an asthmatic. But I didn't wheeze, so no one knew. And I just thought that was the way everybody breathed until that first session. And in that first session, I received the first clear breath of my life.
Yeah, that's incredible. That's a beautiful story. So no wonder that you had such a reaction.
Precisely.
Then, yeah, that's wonderful. Thank you for sharing that. Can you live in London? What is your community there like?
Oh, that is another wonderful thing that life just happened to bring to me at just the right time. Those of us who are here in the UK, we have been so fortunate. There is this wonderful practitioner and longtime student of Jin Shin Jitsu, Editha Campbell, and she is the one who brought Jin Shin Jitsu to the UK. And she had a very clear image of the kind of community that this art could create. And so she has encouraged us through all these years to maintain a very open, very embracing community of mutually supporting each other, whether we're coming for the first time or whether we've been doing this for 20 years. We all see ourselves as bringing something that we can contribute and support each other. And that's what we do.
Well, it's really nice that you have a supportive community. I think it's really important to offer that to people who come also for the first time, that there is a supportive community and that people of all different levels can grow together. Because I think that's so interesting about the art of Jin Shin is that even if you have different levels in one room, the energy finds its way and everybody gets something on their level where they are. And we will see that also when you come and teach here. We're going to get different levels. Everybody is going to have a basic foundation. I just wanted to mention also that if there is anybody that would like to come to this class and hasn't had any formal training, that I'm willing to put something in place for these people so that they can take your class. So,
thank you. That's very generous.
I think we have a question.
Someone wants to know which flow Carylse used to help her asthma.
Did you hear that, Carylse?
I did not hear the question.
Which flow did you use to help your asthma or your brother?
Do you know, because at the time I didn't even know the name of it, I wouldn't be able to tell you which flow it was that he was using, which flow it was that he was practicing. I know that he had only attended one 5-day seminar.
Oh, he did?
It was only one, though, that he had been to.
But
he himself was new. He did not know anything about it.
Right.
So it is one of the aspects of the art that when we are able to let go of all of our expectation that something will happen, and just simply let whatever needs to happen, happen. Dropping our shoulders, placing our hands, then there is a wisdom that flows through that means whatever flow you are engaged with will be the perfect flow for that person.
Okay, so you are saying whatever flow we choose is going to find its way in the body. Is there anything specifically for you that you like for yourself to help with the lungs?
Over the years, there have been quite a few different things that I have used. At the moment, I'm still finding that simply placing my hand onto the upper arm area and then relaxing as much as I can. The other hand can simply be wherever it wants to be, on the other elbow, on the thigh, but just simply paying attention to this whole upper arm area, front and back. And that automatically brings a greater ease through this area.
Thank you. So I hope this answers the question also. What going back a little bit to the pulses, are we going to listen to textures as well? And what do you feel of those? What do you think of those? Do you use them? What is your experience with them?
I am a huge fan of textures, primarily because that was my first feedback when I wanted to listen and learn about listening to pulses. For a very long time, I didn't hear anything at all. But when I finally did, it was actually through the textures that I suddenly went, oh, I can actually hear something. I can actually feel something here. So yes, we will definitely talk about textures.
We will explore them and see what they mean to all of us, I guess.
Yes.
People pick up such different things as well. What do you ever thought about that when people hear completely different things? They listen to the pulse, and what do you think of that? What do you say?
My understanding of the pulses, my engagement with the pulses, is that it is a conversation that is happening. And my way of approaching it is that just as you and I would have one type of conversation, certain topics that we would talk about, if I were speaking to my mother, I would have a different set of topics. I would have a different conversation. If I was speaking to my great nieces, I would have a different set of topics and conversations. So there is an inner wisdom that knows what is the topic of conversation that is perfect for these two to have. And it can be very different from one person to another.
So are you talking then the relationship also between the practitioner and the person that you listen to?
You're listening to.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you. That's beautiful.
Yeah.
I'm learning something from you. We have a question.
What is a basic definition of a texture?
Do you know, I am a huge fan of dictionaries. And that question is prompting me to go to a dictionary and see what it says. You know, you would be surprised what comes in there.
Right.
One of
Michael's
the things
looking it up, I think. But
one of the things that because we are using our hands, we're talking about very simple things that we do every day in our lives. This cup has a completely different texture from this piece of cloth, has a completely different texture to this mat. And as we listen to the pulses, both at the wrist and in the body, we're making use of that sense.
I like that very much too. I'm definitely there when you're here to teach a class. I'll be here. Does that answer the question? Thank you.
Another question.
Carylse, this is for you. If you have a basic self-help routine, what is that routine, and what advice would you give to other students to follow that?
I was going to ask you that anyway, so that's a good question.
And what I would suggest for anyone, experiment around, use different self-help. There are a number of places you can go to get self-help information and suggestions. Try different things and go with your favorite. Go with the one that you love. For me, it's very simply placing my hands in the center of my sternum, on the center of the chest bone. This is one of my all-time favorites through the decades.
And you're having your right hand on.
Whichever way your hands naturally go.
Yeah, because I went like this.
Exactly. So that's the one for you.
Yeah, this feels better for me today.
Yes.
This has a very different feeling, and that has something to do with the right hand on draws the energy in, and the left hand will bring it out. I remember there was one day when I needed to lie like this so clearly, and that I understood that exactly from where I was that day. And
Yes.
today I just went like this. And so that's very, for people, very interesting to observe which hand they put first and what feels right. And it may change, right? Also, the self-help may change per period or per day what you want to do.
Absolutely. And one of the things that I also understand as I come to take a look at so many of the relationships in Jin Shin Jitsu, where I have placed my hands, this is actually a very dynamic place for chronic breathing issues. Now, I did not know that when I first started using this as one of my favorite self-helps. I just knew it felt good. And that's enough.
Yeah, that's a really nice place to start for people.
Yeah.
So yeah, I told you earlier that we are using the name, the Art of Jin Shin Mirai Method. And because we posted it yesterday on Facebook, because, reaching out to a larger audience, Jin Shin Jitsu sometimes is a little bit hard for people to remember, or they compare it to martial art. So we thought here at the Institute to have the word Jitsu and translate it into art, which it is. So the Art of Jin Shin. So I just wanted to tell our community as well. And I wanted to ask you, do you sometimes, going back to the pulses, do you sometimes listen to your own pulse?
I do sometimes, yes. It's something that I will do when my curiosity gets me there. So for example, just before we started live streaming, I was curious what live streaming was doing to my pulses, to me. How was I with this whole idea? And what might I experience in listening to my pulses? So I took the opportunity. Yeah, I'm curious. I wonder what this is.
Yeah.
And
Or for example, oh, am I going to get a flu or a cold? You can feel that texture in the pulses, right?
well, it's whenever I'm drawn to it. And it is a great way to practice pulse listening. You can practice pulse listening even if you don't have someone else to listen to.
Absolutely, and learn a lot. I mean, it is really a matter of practice. I mean, I think probably that the textures are takes the most time to really understand. And it's interesting, when I first took a class in 90 or 91, people didn't really listen to the pulse, to textures. And today, when you take a class, everybody's listening to the texture. So it has really evolved in a way and changed. Do you remember that, Carylse? I mean, the textures were way more mysterious than they are today, I think.
And that's very true with so many different things that I remember from my very early classes that I took. And we would hear things and we would get these kind of puzzled looks on our faces. And we were like, what a strange thing for someone to say. I wonder what they mean. And the same thing is said in a class today, and everybody's nodding their head and they all understand the concept. They all understand what is being talked about.
Yeah, maybe life is just evolving and younger people also understand it differently with all the technology, and it's just a lot faster, and who knows, right?
Who knows?
I mean, I think we have another question.
So, Carylse, the poster right behind you, the Flower of Life, one of our viewers would like you to explain that a little bit more if you could.
I love that it was called the Flower of Life. I think that is a beautiful, beautiful description. It is a poster that has been taken from Mary Burmeister's Self-Help Book 3. That is a drawing that is talking to us about what is called the jumper cable energy. And all I have done with that is to add some color to it so that I could see the movement more fully, more freely. And it is speaking to us about our relationship to light and how light moves through us. And yes, it also shows how, as the light is moving through us, it then gives birth to this star within that begins to unfold. And so I particularly love that flower of life image.
What a beautiful explanation, Carylse. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I hope we will talk a little bit more about that in the class as well, the jumper cable energy.
Yeah.
For a lot of people, that's still kind of a mystery. So
it is.
And in a way, it will always be, because we cannot completely comprehend the light, right? We just have to allow it.
The more we understand, the more questions we have.
Yes.
One of my favorite sayings from Mary Burmeister is, if I give you one good answer, you will leave with 3 good questions.
Yeah, that's so true. And we have 2 more questions.
So the first one is, when you're performing self-help, for example, on the main central flow, does it make a big difference if you're moving between your left and your right hand?
So the self-help main central, for those who maybe, if I'm understanding the question, your right hand is going onto the top of the head and then your left hand is moving through. There are times, and for certain people, where having the right hand on top of the head is really not comfortable. And so that shoulder is, they would prefer to put their left hand on top and then move through. Is that what your questioner is asking about?
You know, sometimes for a solution, very often myself, I do it lying down on my side, on my right side, and then this arm is in resting position. I start like this here, and then I even put the heel of my hand here, and then I continue. So that's another way if people have a hard time keeping their arm up. And yeah.
And my
so to find a way to be
first
comfortable.
choice is always to do the flow as it is suggested that it be done.
Yeah.
So for me, I find if I'm in a reclining chair, if I have pillows under it, so I would encourage people to see if you can find a comfortable way of doing that. My second choice, if it's not comfortable holding the head, is to simply let your hand be at the base of the coccyx, which is actually the final step. But start with it at the base of the coccyx and then the left hand moving through.
That's good, because this weekend I have a self-help class, and 2 actually, and we're going to practice this sitting up. And then it's really hard when you tell people to really feel the energy move, and then they start to get tired. So to place it at the coccyx, the tailbone, is really helpful advice.
With all of the self-help, it's designed to enhance our ability to relax so that we can hear ourselves. If all I'm hearing is the pain in my shoulder because my hand is on top of my head, I'm not really engaged as fully as I might be in listening to the totality of self.
Just another question, a follow-up then from the person that was asking this question, because she or he pointed out the main center source, but for other, because that's very specific, because the left hand pull brings the energy down. So because it's the main center source, it's very specific which hand is on top. But can you then talk about the other flow patterns where it's on the supervisor level? And if you change your hands, if people change their hands around? When they work on themselves, then, I guess. Yeah.
Well, with all of the self-help routines, there are generally, you can have your right hand in one position, your left hand is asked to be put in a different position, and then it just is a mirror image for the other side of your body. So that's quite right, that generally speaking, if you're wanting to use your hands, if I just use this as an example, is the first step of one of the self-help flows. Now, for the other side, you're doing this, but It does make a difference if your hands are like this or your hands are like this. It feels very different. Okay.
So are you
And it's
suggesting?
actually engaging the energy in a different way. So that comes back to what I had said initially, which is I really do encourage people to use the hand positions that we're given.
Mhm.
Get to know the energy in that way. Get to know what that's about.
So yes, so then you can choose which side of the body you're treating.
Yes.
Right. The only yeah. However, we also cannot go wrong with the self-help, which is a nice thing, because sometimes people say, "Oh, I've been doing this, and what you told me to do," and I never told them to do that. But they've been happily practicing and making so much progress.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the fun of
and it really does come down to we are not used to placing our hands on ourselves and listening. So whenever we do that, whenever we're listening, we are going to become aware of the movement and the changes within.
Mm-hmm. That's what it's about, right? I mean, yeah, it really is. Yeah. So, are there any more questions from the folks here?
This is somewhat related. I think we already answered this, but would it be possible to almost use too much Jin Shin or using it in the wrong order, causing adverse effects? I was hoping you could speak to that a little bit.
Good question.
My understanding and my experience of Jin Shin Jitsu is that certainly in terms of the self-help, there is no limit to how much time we spend in self-help. Okay. And I do put one piece of additional information that's very important, which is that whenever we're doing self-help, it is important that the minute you find yourself thinking, I have to do this, I must do this, this is good for me, stop. What tends to happen for some of us is that we move into that place of efforting, this place of, I must do more of it. I must continue with this. I don't feel like doing this, but I have to do it anyway. Exactly. This is our little finger that needs holding.
Yeah.
But it's also very often what happens is as we take ourselves into that place of efforting, it diminishes the impact of the self-help. And it is not that there's too much self-help going on that is then creating a disharmony. It is the efforting that we are putting into it that is creating a disturbance to our energetic self and may produce some discomforts.
Do you think it is possible or a good idea then to hold your little finger and breathe and see if those feelings start to melt and work with it? Because sometimes it also brings it to the surface. Maybe this person efforts a lot and they become very aware when they're practicing it.
Yes, and so if you have that understanding of holding the little finger, you can hold the little finger, and what I would suggest is that you listen to your natural voice within that's going to be saying, no, I've had enough today. You'll get distracted, you'll want to go and do something else. Listen to that.
Yeah.
And then come back to the self-help when you're motivated to do so.
Yeah. That sounds good. Yeah. And it's always, you can do it anytime, like when you're sitting waiting for something and your hands are free, you can place a hand somewhere, which is a nice way to just incorporate it in your life, right? As people do anyway. You see them sitting holding things all the time.
Absolutely. It's very natural.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I think we're going to bring this to a close soon. And I just want to say that I'm so excited that Carylse is going to spend the last weekend of April with us at Jin Shin Institute. And you will also be offering some sessions on I think Friday and Monday, right? And
That's correct.
everybody can book with Michael or through the website, or, you know, I think people know how to reach us or send us a message on Facebook. And then also I'm teaching a self-help class this Saturday at 11 to 1 here at the Institute. And that's also offered by webinar. So if you have any friends or, you know, people that you would like to introduce, this is a good one. And then on Sunday is the class for cancer patients and caregivers at the JCC. That is a free event. It's at 1:30, and because it's sponsored by Breastlink, so that's wonderful. And you know, sharing and learning about people's experiences is so wonderful and interesting. And then bringing the Jin Shin Jitsu in to empower them, you know, to being able to make them feel better. So that is a very exciting class. And I'm very much looking forward to the pulse listening class. I feel I'm going to learn a lot. And I want to thank you, Carylse, for your wonderful insights today.
You're very welcome. It's been my pleasure.
Yeah, and I'll see you soon. And
I'm so looking forward to it.
We'll talk soon. All right. Thank you. Bye, everybody.
Bye.